Alright, welcome everyone to this press conference. I want to thank none of you for showing up. I am pleased to announce the newest addition to the NASCAR Cup Series, Field Filler Incorporated. Now, we don't have any sponsors, a driver, or even any cars built yet, but we're confident that within the next few years we're going to be competing for the championship. But we are realistic about the challenges that we'll face as a small team. But I've taken inspiration from those who came before us, as my disembodied voice will now explain.
What is a NASCAR Backmarker? They are the little guys, the underdogs, the ones who lack the funding of the bigger teams and do what they can to scrape by. There have been countless teams that have tried their luck at competing in the top level of NASCAR, but were never consistently competitive due to a lack of money. It's mostly a money thing. Race teams are expensive.
The tire bill is how much? Well, technically, I only need one kidney.
In the first few decades of the Cup Series, most of the field was just figuring out this whole NASCAR thing. But by the 70s, you had your stable, established teams. Persone Racing was not one of those teams.
This is Joe Persone. While he lacked the money, he made up for it with anger and stubbornness.
Like in 1973 at Talladega, Joe was involved in a wreck. Now, there was another driver who had this great idea of missing the wreck, go all the way back around, develop early onset ARCA brain, and crash into Joe. When Joe eventually came into the pits to replace a broken windshield, his crew just refused to do it. And this did not make him very happy.
I said, I ain't gonna do it. He says, you work for me. If you don't put that windshield in there, I'm gonna come out there and kick your butt.
But I gotta say, there was a reason for it.
His bone was sticking through his arm.
When his team turned the motor off, Persone got out of his car to go kick his crew chief's ass, but didn't get very far because he passed out. Another one of Joe's infamous moments was his misadventure at Charlotte in 1975. The story goes that NASCAR wanted one type of car from every American manufacturer, so they and engine builder Crawford Clements approached him to field a Pontiac. The problem was the Pontiac he had about as much rear downforce as I have will to live, so it did not handle very well. Now, did NASCAR allow him to put a spoiler on to improve it?
Come on, this is NASCAR we're talking about. Of course they didn't.
When it came time to qualify, it went about as well as you'd expect. And when he failed to make the race, he had the very level-headed response of beating the shit out of the car.
Now, we can't talk about backmarkers without mentioning the most revered of them all, McDuffie Racing.
As the years went on and the cost to field a competitive team rose, the gap between the haves and the have-nots grew to,
I don't know, like, that big?
One of these have-nots was JD McDuffie. As the 80s rolled in, McDuffie's small budget couldn't keep up with the big teams of NASCAR, and when regulations changed to downsize the cars, it didn't help his case.
Hey JD, you know all those cars you spent tons of money on building? Yeah. Well, you can't use them anymore. How am I supposed to afford new cars? Not our problem.
Now, despite setting records for the most starts without a win, most last place finishes, and never finishing on the lead lap even once, he was always a fan favorite. People loved this underdog. I mean, just look at NASCAR's sexiest YouTuber, Brock Beard. He fucking loves JD. He even wrote a whole book about him.
Brock, if you could slide me like a Dunkin' gift card for that promo, that'd be nice.
It didn't matter where he finished, JD McDuffie kept racing because that's just what he loved to do. Unfortunately, this doesn't have a happy ending, as in 1991, he had passed away in a crash at Watkins Glen.
Let's jump to the 2000s, where NASCAR is a hot commodity. Also, there's some stuff going on in the Middle East.
By now, the cost of running a cup team has ballooned in size, and it's starting to affect the entry list. With some full-time operations shutting down and few coming in to replace them, this left some of the 43 starting spots open, which allowed some small teams who would otherwise have no chance to qualify on time make it to race day. Now, I'm not going to dive that deep into this because someone has already gone into way more detail than I could ever possibly do.
2004 was their chance to rise. They were the Field Fillers!
But to simplify it, these so-called field fillers,
Not us.
these teams were so off-pace, uncompetitive, lacking speed, other synonym for slow. Sometimes NASCAR would have to step in and disqualify them for running too slow, because if they didn't, this shit would happen.
Well, the 80 car's up there in the groove, and here comes Tony, and Tony gives him a little tap, trying to get him down out of the way, and he turns him around, and Jeff, you just can't turn down right there.
As the 2000s rolled on, a certain practice became increasingly popular for some of these backmarkers. It was called start-and parking. Why spend all this money on tires and other expensive bills when you can just run a couple laps, pull into the garage, say the engine was acting funny, and collect the same amount of money you would have earned for running the full race? Probably the funniest example of it was in 2004 at Rockingham when James Finch's team sent Joe Ruttman out with no pit crew.
Hey, James. Oh, what's up? You want to explain to me why there's no pit crew standing here? Why would I hire a pit crew? We're not planning on running the full race. Excuse me? I mean, the motor's acting funny. Get that fucking car off the track. Yes, sir.
NASCAR parked them after one lap, but the team still earned over $54,000 for their efforts.
One of the most prolific starting parkers was Phil Parsons' team Prism Motorsports, named after the object I trapped EJ in.
All right, it's time to let me out.
Not until my lap times improve in Pickup Cup, Justin.
All you do is run Daytona. Just press the gas pedal and turn left.
In their first year in 2009, Prism would attempt to make every race, and out of the 31 races they qualified for, only 2 of them did they actually complete. But here's the thing. Some of these cars they brought actually had some speed. Between 2009 and 2010, Dave Blaney qualified the car in the top 10 4 times and led some laps at Auto Club before parking the car. NASCAR then responded by impounding it. A few years later in 2014, the team, now called Phil Parsons Racing, named after Phil Parsons, elevated their game to actually running most of the races with Josh Wise at the wheel. That season was notable for when the NASCAR subreddit and the community involved with Dogecoin, a meme cryptocurrency that definitely wouldn't inspire a bunch of grifters, scams, and rug pulls years down the line. Through a fundraiser, the two groups raised 67 million Dogecoin, or about $50,000, to sponsor Josh Wise at Talladega. They would then top that by making Josh Wise the fan vote winner in the All-Star race through sheer determination, and taking advantage of a voting system that had no limit on how many times you could vote.
Oh yeah, we should wrap up the starting part thing.
You see, fans were mad because they wanted to see the entire field give it their all, and the starting part teams took up spots from hypothetical teams that would have had intentions of competing. Meanwhile, NASCAR probably wasn't too happy about paying out prize money to those gaming the system. NASCAR would alter the payout for the final finishing positions to make it less desirable to start and park, and by the mid-2010s, the practice disappeared in Cup.
Now, NASCAR has strict guidelines on what can go in a car. Sometimes these rules get broken, whether on purpose or not. When these get caught, NASCAR hands out point reductions and fines. For the big teams, it's whatever. They got more money than I'll ever see in my entire life. But for the backmarkers, that can derail their entire operation.
This is Carl Long. In 2009, his team entered the Sprint Showdown to try and race their way into the All-Star race. During practice, their engine blew up, and in order to swap it out, they would have to give it to NASCAR for inspection. Long would go on to finish 35th in that race after the second engine also blew up. That's when NASCAR discovered the original engine was 0.17 cubic inches larger than it was supposed to be.
I mean, we're talking like... that much?
Now, for this infraction for a faulty motor in a practice session for an exhibition race, what do you think the monetary fine was? $10,000? $20,000? $50,000? How about $200,000? A then record-setting fine in NASCAR.
Technically, the fine went to the crew chief, but at the end of the year, since he couldn't pay it, it went to the car owner, which was technically Carl Long's wife, but since it was his team and putting your wife $200K in the hole doesn't really help your marriage, it was basically his debt.
Obviously, Carl didn't have 200 grand laying around, so he wouldn't be allowed in the Cup garage until it was paid. But after 8 years, Long and NASCAR came to an agreement to get rid of the fine and allow his new team, MBM Motorsports, to race in the Cup Series. He would enter the Spring Kansas race with the same paint scheme he had back in 2009, but he just couldn't stay out of trouble because NASCAR made him take his weed vape sponsor off because he spelled the name wrong on the entry form.
Now, I'm confident that my team will be successful, and I have that confidence because there have been teams in the past that have been able to shake the label of Backmarker.
One of these teams was Front Row Motorsports, owned by Bob Jenkins. Not that Bob Jenkins. Yeah, there we go. Front Row started in the mid-2000s with a slew of drivers struggling to even qualify for the race. Then, after a few years, they got their driver lineup sort of figured out and were able to consistently make the field. But by no means were they competitive. Also, they may have done a little starting parking.
Now you may be thinking, there's some fairly big sponsors on those cars. Wouldn't they be handing out some decent money? Well, Bob Jenkins is a franchise owner of some of these restaurants, so he has the rights to put the logos on the car. So basically, it's him sponsoring the car.
But going into the early 2010s, they would start finding little bits of success specifically at the super speedways. Due to the nature of the racing at them, super speedways are a great equalizer and allow these backmarkers a chance at a good finish, and this would all come to a head in 2013.
Edwards high, Reagan comes up, covers the spot. Reagan's got it! He's got it! Front row racing is in the victory lane at Talladega. Reagan first, Gilliland second. How about that?
As the years went on, they would build up their program to a respectable mid-pack team with the help of a technical alliance with Roush Fenway. They'd score another win in 2016 after being in the right place at the right time as Pocono turned into Silent Hill. Then in 2021, they'd scored their biggest win yet with the Daytona 500. Today, Front Row is a relatively fast team that's able to be in contention every now and then. I think a great sign of how much they've improved is when last year they finally had both of their cars qualify on the front row. You know, like the name?
So what about today's backmarkers? I should be prepared for who's gonna be my competition. There's NY Racing, a team famous for having their car stolen from a parking lot, causing a big crash in Daytona qualifying, leaving for a few years, then they say they're gonna come back, they don't actually show up, then they actually show up, disappear for another year, and then they come back again. Stiff competition in the Chaos department.
Then there's Live Fast Motorsports, owned by NASCAR sex icon BJ McLeod and some other rich guy. They're notable for formerly being a chartered team, but selling that charter for an estimated $40 million, so not bad. The most prominent backmarker now is Rickware Racing. They so far are the only team in the charter era to be in danger of losing one due to finishing last in owner points 3 years in a row out of all 36 chartered teams.
Also lawsuits. And nepotism.
To wrap this up, I just want to commend these backmarker teams for what they do. These underdogs show up every week knowing that they probably won't be that competitive, but still compete because racing means that much to them. They represent the little guy going up against all the odds, and I think that's very noble. Also, lap traffic can really spice up a boring race.
Oh, looks like word is spread about Field Filler Rank. Let's see what they're saying online.
You know, I'm usually nice whenever new teams come to NASCAR, but I just can't with this team. Field Filler Incorporated, or Fifi.
I have never seen a more embarrassing excuse for a race team.
Everything about this team from top to bottom screams pure garbage.
I don't even like this team. That's saying something.
It's going to be a joke, this team is. I mean, have you seen the owner?
I'm embarrassed to even be watching the sport right now.
I don't even make NASCAR content and I hate this team.
This owner is cheap. He wants his $20 back. Boy, you ain't getting shit. I'm keeping that 20.
Well, at least they're talking about me.